Hey guys, I'm Hunter.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're IMI Defense. We're here at the machine gun nest today. We're going to do an in-depth test, stress test, and pretty much breakdown of some of the top magazines that are on the market right now.
We just wanted to let you guys know that we are not sponsored or endorsed by any of these companies for this test. And also you have to consider that because we're only using one magazine per company, there could be factory defects with these. So, you know, some of the data might not be thorough.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is not absolutely scientific in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, we would need several test subjects, but as you know, that can get very costly. So we're doing the best we can to give you the information you need.
Alright guys, the first magazine we're going to test is of course the Magpul Pmag. This is the Gen 2, 10 rounds. Hunter, go ahead and tell them what kind of ammo we're running real fast.
We're using steel wolf polyfram ammo.
Yep.
Alright.
Good to go. Next magazine is the IMI. Alright. Go. Alright guys, next up is the Lancer L5 AWM, alright? Next up guys, we have the Hex Mag 30 rounder.
Oh.
Alright, lock it open. Good.
Ready?
Yep. Drop it. Good to go. Alright guys, next up we have the Tapco AR magazine, alright? Look at that. Alright, there's one problem. I don't think it even took around. No, it's good. Alright. Here we go. Alright, this magazine's garbage. Doesn't even fall freely. Oh, well, hold on, let's lock this in. Yep, garbage. Done. Alright guys, next up is the RWB 30 round magazine. Yep.
Yeah.
Alright guys, next up we have the CAA Arms 30 round magazine, made in Israel. See how it works. See how it runs here. Alright guys, last up we have the standard steel mag, 30 rounds. This is actually branded as a Palmetto State Armory, so we'll see how it runs. Good to go. Go. Alright guys, we have two magazines that didn't pass the first test. It's the Tapco and the RWB. We're going to test them in the scar, see if they'll feed properly, and if they'll drop freely, alright? Alrighty. That's problem one. Nope. 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 All right.
Sure.
Next up, we have the Tapco. Nice. All over. Yeah, alright. Alright guys, we're going to give this magazine, the RWB, one last chance. We're going to see if it can run in semi-auto, alright? Nope, we're out. Garbage. Alrighty, go ahead, tell them.
So that knocks two of our magazines out of our tests. What we're going to do is move on to another test.
Yep. We're going to go ahead and do a crush test.
With the crush test, we'll be able to see how strong some of these magazines are. Hey guys, as you can see behind us, we have a series of magazines. We're going to do a crush test using my 92 Jeep Wrangler. It's about a curb weight about 5,000 pounds. Obviously, if these get crushed, they're done. We brought some of our failures back just to see how they hold up. But obviously, we can't recommend them at this point. We'll do a final breakdown at the end. But check this out, let us know what you think.
Alright guys, so as you saw, we just did a crush test. What we're going to do now again is that we're actually going to load them back up with 10 rounds and we're going to fire them again in full auto just to make sure that they can still function. We have 6 magazines that survived. I mean, we tried the other 2, they actually survived as well, but since they're not even going to feed, there's no point.
Yeah,
right?
we'll put information, or we'll talk about them a little bit in the tabletop. What we got left in some of the kind of list of what I consider the higher end ones that I mostly expected to survive. You have your Hex Mag. Interestingly enough, the reason I pretty much thought this would survive is Pmag, which is another one, has been around for a very, very long time. It's been battle tested, stuff like that. A little unknown fact, which feel free to put in the comments if we're wrong, but we're pretty confident that we have heard that Pmag, the old factories, after they moved, they ended up selling all their gear to Hex Mag. So we're pretty sure that these are pretty much Pmags, with a nice little fancy honeycomb design. The other one I got here is Lancer. This is actually a pretty cool company. They make, I think they originally started making gasket seals and stuff like that. They got into the firearms business a while ago. They make some really great rifles, so when we started to look at these, we figured these would probably hold up really well because they make grade A quality stuff across the board. Tried and true, in my opinion. Obviously, Ryan will talk about the GI mag as being tried and true a little bit, but this is kind of my go-to magazine. Trust it, everyone uses it. I can't recommend it enough, but when this is all said and done, we might have a different view of these survivors.
So, of course, we like all those other mags, but some other magazines that you can just get. Obviously, there's the Steel Mag, the Stanag, or whatever you want to call it. This held up. That's what we expected. I will say, though, the feed lips are intact, which I'm surprised, because after a while, these do get kind of messy. The IMI magazine is actually holding up pretty well. It's a pretty thick polymer, so I mean, it's doing its job. I'm really surprised. And then, of course, another consumer market product right here is the CAA magazine. This has like loaded mag indicators and all that kind of cool stuff, windowed, and actually it did not crack, so it's good to go. Alright guys, we're just going to use the Pmag here that we have laying around. We're going to fire one round at a time. We're going to shoot the magazines downrange. That way we actually fire and break them a little bit, and then we'll see if they're still going to feed afterwards, alright? Clear.
Hey guys, we're back. We just finished shooting all these. The footage that you just saw is close-ups of all these magazines getting shot. We have rattle on some of them, pieces sticking out of them. We'll show some close-up photos of these so you guys can see them. What we're going to do now is we loaded them up to 10. We feel like trying to load them to 30 would be kind of a waste of an exercise, but we want to load them up to 10. Part of the reason of this exercise is the idea that on the off chance this magazine gets shot, something happens under combat along these lines, can they still be used to any extent? We loaded them all with 10. Some begrudgingly took the last few rounds. Some of them took them without any problems. The one that I do want to call out is this Hex. This Hex took it and filled without any problems, and it's got steel from the spring sticking out the side.
Yep.
Didn't choke, didn't hesitate.
Yeah, one thing we will say about these is that, I mean, obviously your magazine could be shot while it's loaded, but we can't do that kind of test indoors. It's not safe for us to do it, so we're just not going to do it. With these magazines, though, we are going to run them again in full auto. Chances are these probably would run in semi-auto, though. If we get a few rounds through in full auto and it starts to choke, I have a feeling it would run in semi then.
Yeah, we generally have been running everything in full auto. The thought behind that is if it's in full auto, there's more that can go wrong. For the same reason we're using steel ammunition, more can go wrong with that platform, whereas in semi-auto, it's a little bit more safe. It has time to try and, I guess, cycle more fully. And with the steel ammo, it makes sure that if there's any type of hang-up, stuff like that on the different styles of magazines, we're trying to set it up for the worst-case scenario. So hopefully now we're going to run through these and see how they hold up.
All right, guys, first up we have the Lancer mag, all right?
Seated. Slant home. Going hot. Good.
Works. Pmag. Please bear in mind, though, that these shot placements are different, so some of the mags have different amounts of damage on them.
Seated. Bolt home.
Good. Steel.
Seated. Choked a little bit.
Hex Mag.
Seated. Bolt home. Next three.
All right, guys, so we have our last two mags. First one up is the CAA. You got spring sticking out the side right here. Seated. Bolt closed. Good to go. Last mag, the IMI. It also has plenty of spring sticking out. Seated. Bolt doesn't want to go. No drop. Oh. Grab that mag. Let's see if we'll drop freely again one last time. Alright. So it might have had a little bit of gunk that came up in it. Some plastic.
all in all, actually a pretty impressive test for these magazines. The fact that they're still able to run 10 means that they are, I would say, pretty battle proven. Some of them I didn't expect to run 10 after being driven over and then shot. We'll talk a little bit more of that in our tabletop review. Anything you want to throw in while we're here on the range still?
There are other mags that we wanted to get. We just, didn't have a chance to get a hold of them. I mean, there are other tests obviously we would have liked to have done, but we can only do so much. Like a cold test would have been great, like doing them in the snow and stuff, but trying to do all those things at once, it just wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys at the tabletop. Alright guys, so we're back. As you saw, we did a magazine stress test today. We have 8 magazines in front of us here, and a few of them actually made it all the way through. 2 of them actually did not. We could have continued on with it, but honestly it wasn't really worth our time, just because if it's not going to feed properly and it's not going to free fall, what's the point of even testing it any further, right?
The thing with these magazines is they are definitely budget magazines. We grabbed them because it's one of those things that you'll be on the interwebs and you'll see people using them and trying to run them. Normally you'll see people post photos of them on forums, and then you'll see people go, why am I having double feed issues? Why is it not falling free? These 2 magazines, right off the bat, we noticed that they're much heavier than anything else here. Steel, pretty much anything.
Yeah.
It's very odd that you look at these magazines, and I will say that the Tapco, the design of it, and the actual the gripping design on the outside of this is actually really comfortable to grab and pull on, but I think just the way that the flaring is towards the top of this to try and achieve this really aggressive grip caused what I would consider a lot of issues in the main gun that we used today, and we've tested in other guns in the past just to kind of see how it would work out, and just never was able to work out the way we wanted it to.
Right. The magazine itself is really well built, and I had high hopes for it, but sadly it just didn't cut it. I had seen it before, and I was like, oh, maybe this would be a really good option comparable to Magpul and stuff, but I mean, it just didn't run how we wanted it to, or how we honestly needed to. So this magazine is out. All right, I failed the first test pretty much, and because of that, it's done.
Yeah.
Next up is the RWB. It stands for red, white, and blue. I don't know who thought of that name, but the magazine itself is very heavy. It's very thick, so you're expecting it to be durable. We did run it over. Same with the Tapco. We ran over them. They held up, but
no issues. They don't look like anything really even happened to them. Just some scrapes.
The magazine itself, though, is very, very heavy and very thick. And because of how thick it is, I don't think that the inside is made. The inside is made to feed properly and efficiently, because it's just too boxy. It's too thick. It is too thick,
Yeah.
And because of that, as you guys saw in the footage, it got stuck in the firearms. We had to yank it out, so this one is out as well. All right. I will say real fast though, the Tapco mags run about like $10. They weigh in at 5.3 ounces, while the RWBs are $14 and they weigh in at 6.16 ounces.
Yeah.
So.
One of the things that I want to mention about this, which I thought was very odd for what I would consider a polymer style, I don't really think that this is the same type of materials that you would see in something like a Magpul or Hex Mag type of material. It's much more of a harder plastic. The thing that I found very odd is normally hard plastics like this tend to be fairly slick, but I felt that running the steel cased ammunition that we did, this thing hung up more rounds than anything else out there. It was just very odd to us that something like this, or at least to me, that something that's plastic like this, generally I find plastic seems to slide a bit better with steel ammunition. So it was, like I said, very odd to see this thing choke up as much as it did.
Alright, so then we'll go on to the next few that we have here. We might as well go and get Magpul out of the way. The Pmag Gen 2 right here ran fine, as expected. And I mean, obviously, as we said before, there is going to be some change in the firearms based on the hits on them. They are random. They were not made to be exact on all of them. We didn't line them up, for variety, I guess you could say. But with the Pmags are $11. They weigh 5.1 ounces. You know, of course, Magpul, they offer all sorts of new colors now and stuff too. Good magazine. I'll stick with it. It runs on one of my rigs, so.
Yeah, this is kind of my go-to magazine. I've started to look at the Hex Mag. As we mentioned earlier, we've heard that they're pretty much Pmags, or they're just like Pmags, built in the same factory type of deal with some changes to them, more aesthetically than anything else. With that, the thing that I found really interesting about shooting this is that this was the only one that had what I would consider a truly clean in and out.
Yeah.
Ryan said that yes, these will all hit differently, they'll all behave differently, but the one thing that was consistent across all of them is that the holes on them were all pretty jagged. This one looks like someone took
like a
drill or a soldering gun,
yeah,
and just ran it through it real quick. It's actually fairly surprising, but it's not surprising that it ran flawlessly before and after. These things have been a staple for a lot of people. I'm sure most of you out there already have some of these at home. We'll come back to kind of our overall thought on all these magazines in a little bit, but this thing held up pretty well, and I was thoroughly impressed with it.
We might as well go right into Hex Mag then. This company came out, I don't know, a couple years ago now. I guess it's been less than that, maybe.
Yeah.
Hex Mag it's pretty cool. It's really aggressive on the grip texture. You can really customize these with grip tape and everything. And they made this Hex ID system so you can actually change out the colors on the bottom. I thought it was pretty smart. That way you can ID all of your mags, especially if you're going to run tracer rounds or whatever it may be in some of your other mags, you know.
Yeah, or anybody that runs 300 blackout.
Right.
It's very smart to try and designate which mags are which.
Right. I will say though, the Hex Mags come in at a great price. They're only around $11, $12, and that's very comparable to like the Magpul stuff as well. And these are nicer magazines in my opinion. They're not just off the shelf, which, I mean, you can get them off the shelf, but I think they are nicer than some of the stuff you'll see in some of the stores. These are about 4.5 ounces or so, so I mean, they're pretty lightweight. They're pretty good mags. It ran fine. As you can see, the spring came out on this side, but this magazine actually ran fine. Granted, we only did load 10 rounds per mag, but some of these mags at the end, we don't have footage of it, but we actually loaded these with 20s, and some of them ran with 20 rounds in them. Like, I mean, it was hard to load them, but they did run.
Yeah.
All right.
The this Hex Mag, I think this was, to me, the coolest thing to shoot. Not shoot it, but afterwards being able to shoot and run rounds through it, because we'll show
some up close photos of it.
Yeah, we'll show some close-up photos, like probably right here, of the spring actually completely cut in two and sticking out the side on this thing. And we loaded it up and it fired and did 10 rounds. Like I said earlier, our goal was to only do about 10 rounds because we want to see if it's usable. We didn't expect it to run 30, but if you're in a crap hits the fan situation, being able to put 10 rounds and use them would be pretty useful.
Right. Let's go ahead and put up some images right now of the close-ups of these springs before we continue on.
Yeah, so you guys can see that. Hey guys, we're back. Hope you guys like the close-ups of the magazines. As you can see, there's a lot of really good shots of penetration as far as the backside's getting really kind of decimated on some of these. We think it's very cool that they were still able to function after that. Let's jump into the last 4 magazines we have.
Alright, so might as well start with the Lancer, right?
Yeah. The Lancer is probably one of the, I think one of the more interesting brands out there. I think they make really, really great stuff. This magazine has steel feed lips on it, which is in some cases good, in some cases bad. It's mostly like plastic polymer beyond that. And this one is I don't know if you guys can see, it's a translucent one, which is very cool for round count and stuff like that. This magazine held up pretty well. We actually then loaded up with 20 rounds after this was all said and done, and just had some fun with it, and it ran flawlessly. I'm going to let Ryan talk a little bit more on this, because Lancer's probably one of his favorite
Lancer is one of my go-tos, yeah. I like Lancer products a lot. This definitely proved that I like it even more. On the inside, you can't see it, I don't think, from there, but the spring is actually cut from the shot, and so it curled back in. As he said, we loaded 20 rounds in and it still ran, so, I mean, that's great, you know, that's really good news for me. Sadly, this magazine is trashed now, and I need a new one. The Lancer mags come in at like $16 or so. They weigh around 4.4 ounces. They're pretty lightweight. I really like them. The only thing that they need is something that can go here. We need a Ranger plate or something that can be modified on here. I mean, other companies like Hex Mag and stuff, of course they have like, what is it, there's like the competition base plates and stuff, like the metal ones.
The machined aluminum ones.
And like those are cool and all, and I mean that would even be kind of cool on here, but I would just like to have more of a pull tab on these, you know. Essentially though, this is one of my favorite magazines on the market, and I mean, you can't really beat it. It's got the best of both worlds in my opinion.
We're gonna take a second and actually re-show the footage of this one because we thought it was very cool that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
With this translucent body, you could see kind of the mayhem ensuing on the inside of the magazine.
Yeah, and we got lucky that it was clear, so we could do that.
Yeah. So we'll be back in 1 second.
Alright guys, so we're back. Next up we're going to go ahead and look at the, well actually no, let's save this one for last.
Yeah.
Thank you, right? Go ahead and pick up that CA, that Command Arms.
This is Command Arms. This magazine is actually a very cool magazine. The way it's built is it has a translucent round count on the side. It also has what is a little kind of nub design. When you end up filling this up all the way, there's a little dot that sticks out on the bottom, which is pretty cool, especially if you're using them at night or low light situations, because you can just touch it with your finger and figure out if it's a brand new fresh mag, which is really helpful if you need to go into something fully loaded. I'm gonna let Ryan talk about this one a little bit more. It's Israeli made, I believe.
Correct, yeah. This is from Israel apparently, and these mags are a little heavier. They're 5.5 ounces or so, and they're a little more pricey. They're about $20, I think. I will say that these mags seem more like on the consumer shelf, like you just find them in a store versus like some of these other mags that typically you would order online. I will say I was very impressed that it made it this far, that it made it all the way to the end. We drove over it. The window is not even cracked. I mean, the magazine held up. It's a heavier polymer for sure, but I would definitely recommend this one actually. I would say it's a go, you know. As you can see, the spring on this one did come out as well. Most of these, the spring did come out, so.
I actually have a question which I'm going to ask on camera. I noticed that the window goes to 28, not 30.
Right.
So, only 28 rounds.
Nope, 30 rounds.
30 rounds.
Yeah. It's just that the window cuts off because that thing goes all the way down to the bottom. That's how it gets that detent, I guess, to come out.
Yeah.
It did say though on the packaging for it that it pops out at 29 or 30 rounds, and I don't like that it's inconsistent with it. That's the only thing I don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, it is pricier, but if you want all the bells and whistles, sure, go for it.
Yeah. I think it's a very cool magazine. If I wasn't so
Drawn to Pmag?
Drawn to Pmag because of its long-time heritage, it kind of being the go-to replacement to the USGI mags, which we'll talk about in a minute. I'd probably go to these, but I will say that for me, back to kind of mirror what Ryan said, if Lancer puts Ranger plates on their frickin' magazines, I would replace all my magazines.
Don't worry, I still like them. Alright guys, so next we have the IMI Defense magazine. This magazine got messed up pretty good. As I don't know if we mentioned it earlier, but one of the feeding issues that we could have had with some of the firearms.
Wait. Okay, go.
One of the feeding issues we could have had with some of the guns is, you know, there are parts inside of these magazines now floating around. We can see that being an issue. This polymer is a little thicker and heavier, and when you pick it up, you kind of expect it to be a metal magazine, just based on how plain it is, right? The IMI magazines are, what, $11? They weigh 4 ounces. They're pretty lightweight. The polymer itself, I don't think is that super top-notch. The only reason I'm saying that is based on the exit wound here. It did crack more than some of these other ones. Granted, it is at a stress point, right, where the molding is done, but still, I think it's I don't know. I mean, it's a good mag, but
yeah,
I don't know if I'd buy any more of them.
I think seeing it rip apart like that makes me wonder if we push this harder in some way, would along one of these kind of easily more stressed lines, would it actually break in two? It has that feeling where
it's almost like brittle.
Yeah, if anyone's ever held a Tapco, actually let me see a Tapco.
Yeah.
These things feel very, very solid, and there's no question that it's going to break. There's something about these in the weight and the design of it that it feels solid to the touch, like you can't really easily squeeze it, but it feels like worn plastic. That's the only way I can describe this. When you have plastic that's sat out in the sun too long and becomes brittle and leached of whatever polymers are in it.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Yeah.
That's what I feel whenever I pick this up, and I look at the lack of a better word, tear line that was just caused by the exit wound.
Right. Yeah. So, granted, it ran fine. Another good magazine to consider. All right. Last up, we have the USGI. As you can hear, nice and clanky in there. The USGI mags are, anywhere from $7 to $12, $14, $15, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
lightweight.
Depending on the type of upgrades, because you can buy these from companies with upgraded feed upgraded followers. And if you get the upgraded followers, it'll punch up the price a little bit on them. You can get them with Ranger plates put on, which is pretty cool.
Or mag pools themselves. The one thing I was trying to do, we were trying to actually find original companies, like who the original companies are that make these. Because obviously, this is from PSA, Pmag State Armory. So a lot of these are rebranded magazines, but I'm trying to find out what factories they come from. So I really did want to compare the factories and see if there is a difference in any of them, because there is a difference in the steel and aluminum to some extent, but even within those companies that make these, I am curious if there is any real change.
Yeah, and another question for you. During your research and looking into these metal mags, I think you said somewhere that even though there's, let's say, 4 dozen companies that make steel and aluminum mags in this design, that if you actually trace their bloodlines of where they come from, it narrows down to maybe a dozen total factories that are actually making these, or less.
It's less, I think.
It might be 4, 5, 6, something like that.
I mean, I guess. I know there's companies like Elander and Brownells has a magazine, Bushmaster has a magazine, but it's like, where do they come from? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they can't all be that different, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure some of them are from their own companies, but I'm sure that there are parent companies as well that are just rebranding these, just like anything else. Magazine ran fine, as you guys saw. The only problem with these mags, in my opinion, is that they're a little clanky, a little noisy. Speed lifts have problems, especially if you're running the steel mags. They don't want to run in full auto all the time, especially with the steel ammo or steel cased ammo. I prefer the Pmag over this because I think the Pmag runs more efficiently, but this is tried and true. It's going to hold its, it's going to hum.
Yeah. One thing I want to call out about this, which looking down the line of the entrance and exit wounds on these, this one is by far the most dangerous to be working with after a bullet goes through it.
Yeah, that metal's going to cut you up.
Yeah, so something to keep in mind, that if it does...
Where's Landon at? Maybe we can talk about spalling.
Spalling, yeah. If God forbid, for whatever reason, a round cooks off inside the metal,
right,
for whatever weird reason, I'd be interested to know if it just sends shards, which a lot of this plastic, yeah, it would hurt, but I don't think it would be as deadly as having a piece of metal rip you up. So, something to think about.
Let's pop up a few images real quick.
Yeah. Hey guys, we're back. We're gonna roll into some of the kind of, I don't want to say metrics, but some of the kind of baseline information and a little bit of our overall thoughts and how we feel about what we did today. So,
well, first off, again, we used WPA Wolf ammo, 55 grain, steel cased. It runs a little hotter. It is going to cause more malfunctions because of it being steel cased. In my opinion, it's going to gum the gun up real quick. We ran it through an M4 full auto. The reason we did a full auto was we figured, well, if you're going to put some stress on it, why not use a full auto, right? If it runs in full auto, it should run in semi, essentially, right?
Yeah.
We also had the SCAR SBR up as well, just in case like some of the mags didn't want to run in the M4, we would try them in the SCAR. And I think we have a few clips maybe of the SCAR with some of these mags in them, so we can throw those up as well. There were other tests that we wanted to do. Why don't you go ahead and talk about some of the tests that we didn't do?
Two of the tests that we wanted to do, one was being like a cold temperature or frozen test. Obviously because of either storageability or portability, the idea of doing it the way that I had wanted to do it, which was fill them halfway full of water, stick them in a freezer, ice them overnight, try and load them and fire them the next day, see if they run. Because the idea of dropping something in the snow, having stuff melt into it and then refreeze overnight is a possibility, but since it's on a far stretch, it really didn't seem feasible for us to do it. The other one being dust or dirt test. With the dust or dirt test, what we ended up deciding was that we didn't really want to do a dust or dirt test because we think that that would speak more to issues with the gun itself, contaminating or fouling up the gun, and not really give a true representation of the magazines themselves, because if we end up starting to foul up a full auto rifle,
Right.
it could lead to potentially every magazine after that then failing unless we pull the entire thing apart and clean it over and over and over again. So given the amount of time and how much we wanted to try and make sure we got the baseline in for these magazines for you guys, we shied away from those two tests.
Right, and with that being said, like we could have used a piston-driven system, but still, like even with that, you know, you're looking at still having some issues with the firearm versus the magazines. With the direct impingement, he's right. We would have had to clean it after every magazine, because the thing is, you can't just go and pick up another M4 and expect it to have the exact same, you know, results replicated. There are differences in all the firearms, so that's why we decided to stick with one gun and skip that test. Another test we did consider doing was filling the magazines with water just to see which magazines would drain. Reason being, you know, you're going to get rained on. So we wanted to see if these magazines would actually drain, especially if they were in this position versus, you know, a down position. Even though, granted, they are like this in your carriers.
Yeah, and if you drop them in water or anything like that. One of the things that we mentioned earlier in this that I just want to address is we talked about doing drop tests out of several different weapon systems. We ended up opting against that. There's maybe a few of us doing it in the SCAR. The reason we ended up opting against it is we decided to look at the larger population of gun owners as far as AR-15s, the rifles that own this. It's going to be that mil-spec style lower receiver, not the flared underbelly, crazy jaw teeth, SCAR design, stuff like that.
Are you making fun of my Lancer right now?
It's yes, they're out there, but we want to go with, if it can function and this is your bare minimum, that's kind of what you should look at. You shouldn't look at going, oh, my gun has a flared mag well, maybe it'll run in mine. Pick one up, try it. We're not saying don't. Pick what you want, what's going to work with your equipment, but we want to go with, like the steel, like full auto, and in this case, a standard magwell design. We want to go with the most simple and the most rigorous types of tests to induce failure more easily, because we were actually hoping that more of these would fail.
Right.
We were impressed that many of them made it through all the way, but you can look at it and go, okay, it works in that gun or it doesn't work in that gun. That gives me a higher probability in my super awesome Lancer wide grip, awesome flared magazine design that it will run.
Alright, to wrap things up, a few notes. These magazines, you can buy them pretty much anywhere. A lot of these are off the shelf. Of course, there are specialty stores and stuff, but some of these mags you'll see more commonly than others. That's why we try to grab some, because, you know, that's what you're going to see on the market. That's what most people are just going to pick up and buy. There are places like Gander Mountain, Bass Pro, Midway USA, Tactical Link, Brownells and all that. They all sell magazines. Make sure it's obviously legal for you to purchase and own these in your state. We can't really choose a overall winner because really we like them all, but two mags that will be out RWB, and Tapco. Granted, as we mentioned in the very beginning of this test, there's only one magazine of each type here, right? So it could be a factory defect, there could just be a problem with it itself versus it being all of them, right?
Yeah, could have came out of a crappy mold.
Yeah. And then I will say there were 2 other magazines we wanted to get our hands on, but we didn't have a chance to, and that was the Hex Mag and the Troy, the Battle Mag. Maybe we'll get those next time.
Yeah. Check back with us. Maybe we'll have them.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Yep.
Real quick, shout out to the Machine Gun Nest for letting us use their facilities for these tests. If you're in the Frederick area,
Oh yeah.
go in. You can rent some of the guns that you saw in our video today. We are not sponsored by them in any way, shape, or form. They are just great 2A advocates, so we like to try and support them as much as possible. If you like this video, click like, subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Jump over to our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Feel free to shoot us a question anytime. One of us will pick it up and one of us will answer it for you. I would say we probably have a 99% hit rate on our questions. Some of our older YouTube videos I'm starting to phase out on. I can't answer whatever attached to it 80 billion times.
But will it?
It might. And I have sent too many emails telling people whether it won't or it will, because I will go out of the way and I will contact different companies to ask on your behalf. Please don't abuse that. We are trying to get our main website up and running. Mostly it's just kickoff to most of our social links. So if you go to manusdefense.com, you can get to any of these social links that I mentioned before. In the near future, we'll have bios, information, blogs, maybe vlogs up there as well. So check that out. As always, stay safe, shoot straight. I'm Hunter.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are
Manus Defense.
Ha ha ha!